We start in a typical American suburb, as an exhausted nurse comes home from her extra long shift to snuggle up with her lover. But early the next morning, the neighbour's kid barges in and tries to munch him up for her breakfast. And after the nurse fails to do her one job and nurse said lover back to health, he tries to eat her out, but not in the good way. Until she locks herself in the bathroom and stops to have a little soak, before her boyfriend goes full Jack Nicholson in The Shining and puts his head through the frigging door. So naturally, she throws herself out the window and gets the heck out of Dodge, whilst the typical American suburb descends into chaos all around her. Anyway, after the opening titles talking about how a bunch of dead people are coming back to life because reasons, she meets a badass baldy copper called Ken. And doing a trucy team up with a nondescript white guy, a pregnant Russian, and her boyfriend what looks like a budget Tyrese Gibson, they all fancy a bit of shopping now the world's ending, so head on over to the local mall. Once inside said local mall, they try to secure the area but are attacked by the living dead fellas what love human flesh. And the zombie cop secretly bites the pregnant Russian before they leave him to flop about in a small stream like a fucking magic garb. Taking the elevator to the upper floor, they're confronted by three security officers called Bart, Terry and CJ, who reluctantly agree to take them in on condition they give up their 2A rights and shit. Then they show the group how the world has totally collapsed now the living dead are back and are doing a bunch of bad things. And the news says that you have to blow the noggin off of said dead fellas if you want to send them back to Portland, Oregon. Hell. Meanwhile, Anna puts on some shoes before having a little cry about her dead lover what loves Stanley Kubrick movies a little too much.
Bruh.
Whilst budget Tyrese Gibson attends to his wife's sneaky hurty bite. And Kenny Boy decides that he wants to go to a military safety zone in Fort Pastor to go find his missing brother. Later, the nondescript white guy called Michael convinces control freak CJ to let him put some signs on the roof, so that passing helicopters know that they still have cognitive brain function, unlike the masses of living dead people outside and also the current president. Anyway, the three mall cops go back downstairs and put their dopey ex-colleague, what loves cosplaying as a frigging Pokemon, out of his misery. Whilst up on the roof, all the zombie fellas are being drawn to the mall, primarily because some gun nut is making a riot racket shooting down at the crowd outside his gun shop. And after one of the choppers totally ghosts them, the group start to panic about potentially having to wait around for weeks before he comes back, cause the pregnant Russian is totally about to pop like a can of Pringles, and the badass baldy cop has to get over to his beloved lost brother and she. Later that night, a preacher on TV reckons all this is happening because America is now a bunch of degenerate sinners. But this is set way back in 2004 and they didn't even have Drag Queen Story Hour back then, so God knows how much worse it would be if this shit happened today. And speaking of degenerate sinners, turns out that budget Tyrese Gibson fella is totally a thief, but is determined to turn over a new leaf by being a good dad to his incoming interracial Russian-y kid. The next morning, a giant truck bursts into the parking lot, and the three arsehole mall cops hold the group at gunpoint when they say they want to go and save that bunch of random strangers. So naturally, the proper cop turns the tables and slings the two main ones into a holding cell, whilst leaving the nicer one free to help him go and get those trapped peeps. And after Michael and budget Tyrese finally work up the courage to go back out there, turns out the new lot are already climbing up to the roof and didn't even need their help anyway.
Bruh.
So they proceed to show the new group inside, whilst wheelbarrowing around an invalid woman who's suffering from a severe zombie bite and also obesity. And before you can say, this is Lemwell, we're introduced to them all, including a repressed gay bloke called Glenn, an old man called Tucker, shallow Monica and sweet Norma, sickly Frank and his daughter Nicole, and an arrogant arsehole called Steve, who looks like he could be part of a modern family in another life.
LOL.
Anyway, Steve tells Ken that Fort Pastor is totally gone, and that place is destroyed worse than my bathroom on Taco Bell night. But the baldy badass says he don't care if it's a suicide mission, because he's totally going off to find his brother, even though he's 99% likely dead, so shut up about it already. Well, that is until he chats to the gun nut from earlier across a rooftop via whiteboard signs, which makes him reconsider because reasons. Meanwhile, turns out that Frank fella has been bitten on his hand, but because these dopes have never bothered to watch a zombie flick before and have seemingly totally missed all 11 seasons of The Walking Dead, they have no idea that the virus is spread through bites, so they don't think much of it. until that morbidly obese woman totally dies of said virus but then quickly comes back to life. Because apparently Heaven doesn't have her favourite type of snack, so she's come back to Earth to get some fresh ribs and shit. So totally charges at the small blonde and gets herself turned into a shish kebab. Now putting two and two together by literally watching it happen, Anna tells the others that they're dealing with a brand new deadly virus what's spread by bites. So naturally, the nondescript white guy wants to go and kill Frank right fuckity now, because he's a ticking time bomb and shit. Naturally, Frank don't much like the sound of that, because he quite likes doing that living thing. But moreover, his daughter Nicole's already lost everyone she loves, and he's all she's got left in the world now. But the badass baldy bloke says stop being a pussy-hole and just die already. So he totally puts a bullet in him off screen after the infected bloke deteriorates and soon looks like a living corpse, aka current day Celine Dion.
Damn!
A few weeks then pass, and said badass baldy cop plays a few ball games with Gunner Andy via whiteboard text message, whilst the group all bond with one another in a bizarre musical montage set to the swing version of a Disturbed song.
Get up, come on, get down with the sickness.
Later, Gunner Andy shoots a bunch of undead looky-likey fellas in the crowd for shits and giggles, whilst the gay bloke tortures the imprisoned mall cops by telling them all about his first homosexual experiences. Not a joke. That night though, when the power goes off after Michael is done implying his wife and child died during the outbreak, whilst elsewhere, Budget Tyrese Gibson is trying to save his own wife and child by delivering his incoming interracial baby now, because his dying infected wife is totally in labour. Meanwhile, Mike and Ken take the two mall cops down to the garage to earn their freedom, and soon find a little doggy before being attacked by some sort of ninja amputee fella who totally munches up Bart, and who then gets made into an all-you-can-eat buffet by a bunch more of them hungry zombozos. So naturally, the gang set the rest of them on fire, whilst back in the secluded private room, phony fakey Tyrese shoves a stick in his dead wife's gob and then reaches into her guts to totally deliver his Soviet sprog. But unfortunately, Norma stumbles in on him, and she just can't believe that he would have a baby with a Russian after all the bad things they've been doing in Ukraine and shit. So she blows said naughty Ruski back to friggin' Moscow, before she goes full gangster granny and has a shootout with that thuggish fake Tyrese chap, and they proceed to pop caps into each other and then get totally deaded. And after they both croak, poor Anna the nurse has to break her oath to do no harm and totally do all the harm to that little tot by genociding a whole new species. Cause she's a xenophobic racialist and fucking hates infant zombies and also Russian gummies. A little later, and a badass baldy cop has had enough of sitting around waiting to die and also losing a bunch of games of chess to a bloke across the rooftop what he's never even met.
Bruh.
So Michael comes up with a plan to totally fix up a pair of buses down in the garage, and then takes Steve's boat in the marina off to some random island. After a brief montage of the gang pimping their rides, Ken lets Andy know about their plan to escape, but he just whinges about being hungry and shit. So naturally, they send the poor dog over to his building carrying cans of food, cause apparently zombies don't really see innocent dogs as appropriate meat for their bellies, which hilariously puts these soulless husks one up on the morality scale of the friggin' Koreans. But unfortunately, some crafty ghouls manage to get into his gaff and totally infect the NRA nut. Also unfortunately, that Nicole bird has a complete mental breakdown after they use that dog what she's grown close to, given it's the only thing she had left in the world after they murdered her sickly dad earlier, and smashes her truck into Andy's place to go save it, but soon gets trapped in a small cupboard by the now zombified Andy. So, because they've also never watched Fear the Walking Dead, they have no idea that they could just smear zombie guts all over themselves to walk amongst the horde, so they just use a sewer system to get over there and proceed to shoot said Andy zombie in the noggin. And after they rescue that dopey Nicole and Chips the dog, they head back through the sewers. But Tucker falls through a manhole like a fucking cartoon character and snaps his leg real good and proper. And despite CJ's best efforts to save the now cripple, the zombie mob swarm them and soon have themselves a tasty Tuckery meal. So once back in the garage, they all jump into their souped up wheels and get the F out of Dodge, but soon get stuck in the middle of a mob of brainless smelly peeps. Yes, exactly like a Just Stop Oil protest. And after chainsawing the legs off zombies who are rudely trying to climb up the side of the bus, CJ lobs a gas canister into the crowd and blows the mob to Kingdom Come, and thereby clearing the path to the marina. But unfortunately, one of the buses takes a sharp turn, which leads that repressed homosexual to carve up that shallow beauty queen and then totally himself. Also, unfortunately, equally shallow and selfish Stevie tries to run off to his boat alone and leaving everyone else to get deaded. But it's instantly set upon by a zombo. And he looks like it's curtains for the Phil Dunphy looking fella what loved unnecessarily pissing off everyone he ever came across. A little later, and the other bus peeps arrive to help, and Anna shoots the reanimated Stevie and finally shuts him up for a bit, before grabbing the boat keys and jumping in the back of the remaining bus, just in the nick of time. After literally crashing into the marina, CJ buys the guys some time by doing one of them self-sacrifice things and blowing himself up along with most of the zombie horde. And as they prepare to set off to God knows where, Michael stays behind, because turns out he's been totally bitten and is now more doomed than a Bud Light marketing exec.
LOL!
Anna then says a tearful goodbye to the nondescript white guy who then blows his own brains out on the small dock. And we end with a boat crew arriving on some random island, before being instantly swarmed again by even more dead smelly peeps. And then the credits roll without giving us any closure on the characters we just spent the past 90 minutes with. Ah, such satisfying writing. And that's it. That's the movie. Though my favourite part was how main character Anna never once mentioned her dead lover after he headbutted their bathroom door and then ran off to terrorise the neighbourhood. God, talk about out of sight, out of mind. But anyway, that's the plot and that's your lot. Considering that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.